This presentation has been made by those 6 different schools, all of them located in main Europe, Forex in Spain, Splash Cafe in Spain, Italy, France, Spanish in Spain, Franzong in France, CR in Portugal, and GRS in Germany. The presentation will be divided between the different sides. You will have Portugal and Spain compare one side the other, and France and Germany. Okay? Market overview. Let's start with a general overview of the different situation. As you may know, each one of the countries in Europe is trying to manage the situation on a different way. So, for example, in France, even if we start the pandemic in March and we reopen the schools at the beginning of the summer, since October 13th until next week at least, all our schools in France are closed. The situation overview is that there is at least a minus 30% on the request for the visas, and most of our schools has lost up to 80% of their businesses. Germany, the situation is different because of the law, the schools can remain open, even considering that the arrival is not so easy for foreign students. As you can see, pathway students, internship applications are still working on and are still going to schools. The main difference between those two countries is the capacity of opening the public places. Laws are different, especially in Germany, when it depends on the regions on the federal system. The travel corridors are slightly the same. We are speaking about borders inside Schengen are open. The freedom of movement, that's not going to change compared to the borders outside Schengen. In France, borders are just closed and you need a specific visa to enter the country, compared to Germany, where you just need to have your PCR and you need to do a quarantine on arrival. Spain. In Spain, the situation is different because our language schools are still open and are working mainly with the students living in Spain and the long-term students who didn't come back to their countries. Same things happen in Portugal. Today, the schools are open after a spring where everyone was closed. Today, both of those countries are on a state of urgency, and in Spain, they are still suffering from the lockdown. Travel from Europe to Spain and to Portugal is still possible, compared to the possibility to move from outside Europe to Spain. That is not possible, but it's still possible to Portugal. I can understand that no one follows the rules in Europe because each country is doing a different way. The protocols. I'm pretty sure this one looks like the one you are following in your own countries, who are mainly the green zones, red zones, and how to manage the protocol of the origins. In Europe, in this side, more or less they are using the same thing. The green zone is Schengen countries and a list of partners who are not request to any specific condition. And then you have the other zones who are much more specific here about the restrictions. Quarantines, each country is different. If you go to Germany, you have to do these quarantines, 14 days plus PCRs, compared to France, where only some countries do request a PCR, but there is no a quarantine. It's just a volunteer 7 days isolations. On the country, wearing a mask is mandatory for both the students and the teachers, and the social distancing is very important. In France, we add the information about the attestation de déplacement. You cannot move out of your house except if you have your accreditation. This is on the app. You have your own app on your mobile phone, and you can just accredit that you need to move from one place to another. For example, if you need to go to courses to do the shopping or to do sport. That's for the moment. Any questions? For the moment, everything's okay. In Spain and Portugal, same thing or more or less the same thing. In Spain, they just until next week there were no controls on arrivals, and from November 23, all visitors from outside the European Union will be requested to have a PCR compared to Portugal, where all the details are checked on arrival. In Portugal, there is no quarantine. In Spain, there is only quarantine in case you have the symptoms. Internal restriction of movement. As we say, in France, you have the attestation de mouvement, attestation de déplacement, compared to Spain, where you cannot change from one region to another. And even in some cities like Barcelona or Madrid, you cannot move from one district to another. In Portugal, there is no restriction on movement between the regions. That's very important in case you go to Portugal in the near future. On this country, Portugal, yes, they still have the curfew measure that has been made in place for different situations in the different countries. Quarantines, same information. There is some quarantines in Portugal only in case you are positive, or in Spain in case you have the symptoms. And the guidelines for the industry, each one of the Spanish Association, put in place a guideline for schools compared to Portugal, where there is no association, so it was just the general rules about the different business receiving public. And we are mainly the social distancing, the mask, and the space or the number of people on closed space. For the student visas or for the programs, there is no restriction to program or to people accessing to the schools. Visas. For visas, instead of accessing and telling you all the details about the visas, what we created was those students. So this presentation will be available for downloading, or I can just send it to you, where you will have the details about the information. But to do things easier, we are back to the same style. There is no change on visas that are for students that are already in France or in Germany. Even for the students whose visa did expire during these 6 months from March to June, and from June, because there is a huge delay on visa management on the police station, those visas has been reconducted. For the work and study permit, for all these different visas, there is no change and they are still available. Any student can access both countries if they have a student visa. In Spain, same situation. There is no change on the visa for students who are already in Spain or Portugal, and there is no change on work study visa or visa updates for long-term students, and they are still available from the different countries. That was the quick presentation about those 4 countries. And even if I made it very, very quick, I think that that explains the situation of the main Europe. Each country is doing the same thing they have been doing until now, considering the actual situation all around the world. So if you have any question, please go through the chat. Now I can see it, and I will be more than happy to answer all your questions or comments. You are welcome, Maura. Just to, for example, for Brazil, the embassies are open, and any student with a long-term visa over 3 months can access Europe. We are receiving students from Brazil, so there is no problem for students to come and follow the lessons in France. What we have doing is doing a branded course, and most of the schools are doing branded courses between online when the school is closed and present courses or physical courses when we can open. This is Lava for 2021. We all expect to have a correct summer. I think the expectation are that if we have the vaccines working from January, we are expecting between 50 and 75% of the tourists back to Europe or back to main Europe on the summer. If I speak about France, it's very important to consider the decision that the president, Monsieur Macron, is going to take next week and the public comments. But I have to say that from spring, I'm quite positive. And for the summer, I'm real positive. I think we may be able, all of us, to do at least 50% of 2019 numbers. If there is no questions, and looks like there is no many comments, just good luck for the rest of the conference. Please enjoy the meetings. Let's prepare a great 2021. Do not hesitate to contact any of the schools who participate on the presentation and all the schools who are participating on the FLLT workshop. Good evening for the ones who are in Europe. Enjoy your day for the ones that are in Latin America and North America. Thank you.